back to the channel. Well, I'm here again with Charles, and as promised, I brought my Goanna record. So this has come all the way up from Geelong today. This I purchased, not from Brash's, from Myers for $11, back when it was a brand new record. And it has been around the block, Charles, let me tell you. So what we want to do is put this through your restoration system. Remember, I got it right today?
Yes, I'm sorry for the Australian Red Cross. No 20 Australian dollars.
So I'm a quick learner, especially when it comes to money. So we're going to put this through. We're going to film this. We're going to show everybody exactly what Charles does, and then I'm actually going to get one of Charles's machines. I'm going to review it on the channel. So I'm going to go through some of my records when we get home, and we're going to go right through this whole process. Now, what better teacher than the man himself to show me exactly what I need to do when I get my KIRMUSS machine at home and I start restoring my records. So let's get on with this. I'll cut to Charles and he'll show you exactly what we're going to do.
Okay, well, welcome back. And I'd like to thank everyone here of the generosity and the friendship. We all love music, and music brings the world together. And I'm very appreciative of everyone feeding me records. Neil across the street here, some of the other record resellers, and now folks from home brought records this morning which we restored. So first of all, one of the things just before we even go through, records are probably the most resilient of all recording medias. I can have clicks and pops and whatever, I can still hear music. Compared to a scratch CD, which is totally destroyed. If I have a streaming music system and the hard drive's gone, I have nothing. So records have withstood the effects of time. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to take the record and we're going to look here at side one arbitrarily, and again, nothing's being scripted, and we put it on a turntable. Okay. Before we play any record, records come out of the press, as I kind of mentioned yesterday, and I'm going to just come over here, just to remind the folks that are perhaps new today to the channel, is records are made where we have a stamper, side B, we have a label that falls on side B, we have a 185 degree temperature hot biscuit that's been injected. Obviously temperatures change between the manufacturers. And then we have the label for side A that falls onto the biscuit. And then finally side A now comes down, and in this particular plant here, Cascadia in Portland, Oregon, a record comes out every 3 minutes. Why do records come out every 3 minutes? Well, we need to also keep the records in so they cool down a bit. They pop out because there's a release agent or a pressing oil that comes out of the record. Otherwise, if we did not have that out of the plastic, the records would be stuck in these stampers. And about 4 years ago, about 10 years into my process, I discovered a document for those of you that are old like me. In 1977, the Shure brothers came out with the V15 Mark IV cartridge. And I sold that in high school at Bill Layton Audio in Montreal, and they all came back where people said there's something on the groove, on the needle itself. Well, Shure came out with a document that I discovered only 4 years ago that said they could not remove that. They called it a pressing oil. I called it, with Michael Fremer in 2017, a release agent. And if you remember buying the V15 Mark IV in 1978, and it's on Shure's archival site, they gave you a brush. They were trying to figure out how to keep that needle clean. The Mark V came out, which became the standard for Library of Congress, the folks here in Australia, the universities in Canada. That solved the problem. They changed the elliptical stylus. So that, in fact, proved, instead of buying a $178,000 microscope for Mr. Fremer, that proved that I was right. There is a release agent. So here we go to the turntable. Before you play any record, you need to use a 10 micron brush. And we're not talking about restoration yet. Why? The needle creates a temperature of 1200 degrees. We have that release agent, that pressing oil that's there. So if you think of a new record and you hear a pop every so often, It's because the cooling oil fused the dust particle in the release agent, in the pressing oil. If I now have not removed any dust, dandruff around the record, what happens is I'm going to heat. Look what happened here. There's a coating on the record. The turntable stopped. There's a severe coating on this record. A record should not stop the spin. So this proves there's a coating on the record. Irrespective, if I do not remove the dust, I may create more pops at home. So now, since we removed the dust, I reduce the static using a carbon fiber. And these are not used to clean records, it's to reduce static. The felt is used to remove dust because it lands into the felt. And how do you clean this felt? Use one of those 3M rollers to remove the dust. So if you can't afford my system, this is your tool. And every 3 or 4 records, because your needle is gouging out what is on the record, because this was cleaned with something before. It has the plasticizer film that we talked about yesterday and the pressing oil. So you want to make sure your needle is clean. So we're now just going to go and pop the needle down, and we're going to take a reference reading using the spectrum analyzer over here. So I'm going to grab, unfortunately you won't be able to hear the music. We're not allowed having speakers in this area. So I'm going to pop the headphones on. I'm going to drop the needle. Crackle, crackle. Crackle, crackle. I adjust the volume so that it's comfortable. And now I'm going to mark this here. There we go. There. That is the reference signal. So now we're going to go and start the restoration process. No. So what we do is we bring the record over to our cavitation machine. This is a 35 kilohertz ultrasonic with a 70 kilohertz resonance. What that means is that the cavitation creates bubbles, and as they inflow, they're actually a vacuum. So the surface that you see here from the edge of the record to the dead wax area is actually seeing mountains. We're seeing the cavitation pull materials off this aluminum foil. So I'm going to put this into the machine. And all we're doing is we're not really taking advantage of our technology, because the triboelectric table of charges, which I base my studies on, states that a record is negative and water, with or without a soap, is negative. So actually, while the water is touching this here, the bubbles that rise and collapse and create the vacuum are really not next to the record. So all I'm doing is a quick surface clean, because the water is touching the record, but we're not doing anything. So we do this. In our manual we say do it 5 minutes, because this morning we had a totally brown record. It was full of fungus. The fungus, the dust was coming out of the record. That's why in here we do have just distilled water as the cleaning mechanism, but we have 40 milliliters of 70% alcohol, not to do anything to the record except kill that live or dormant fungus so that we do not get sick. And today we coughed when all that dust started to come out. And that record has not been played in 70 years. So here, again, we're not doing anything. So I'm going to speed this up. I'm going to say, fine, let's take the record out. I take the record out, I wobble the record on top of the top, and you'll see here that there's water on the record. Okay, remember we said that this record had a severe coating. There's water on the record. Remember, we have water and the record, they're repelling each other. So I got a pool of water. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring this over to the workstation. And now, we're going to now start the process. My patent talks about a propanediol 1-2-178. This is not a cleaning solution. This is 2% propanediol in 98% distilled water. And if you take a look here, you'll see it's cloudy. There's an organic colorant in here. That colorant will have the record speak to me and tell me what we're removing. And when you do not see that colorant appear, it's not a green light that says I'm ready. It will tell you there's nothing left for the record to our system remove. So since it's only 2% propanediol in this charge-induced agent, I remove the excess water, not to dilute the charge. I apply at 12 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and 4 o'clock the spray. We have a goat hair brush that we scrunch, and now I apply this to the record. Now, already you're seeing some white materials here. This normally does not happen yet because we actually did not change the charge of the record. But since there was already a coating and you saw the turntable slow down, we already started to remove materials even if the record was repelling the water. So I just applied this haphazardly, work on the edges, flip the record over. I will now remove, again, any excess water, not to dilute the spray. 12, 8, and 4. Pad this so that I don't see the agent from the prior surface. And use my small little cloth so I don't put fingerprints on the label. There's more schmutz coming out. Normally, again, you do not see this, but this record is severely coated. Somehow this was processed. This isn't the pressing oil. This is a coating from another prior cleaning system. Take the record, bring it over, remove the excess water that I dropped onto the cover of the record so I don't ruin my wife's wood floors, and then I put this back into the machine. There we go. Now there's a little difference in change of sound. The cavitating bubbles are being attracted to the record. So now we're sucking out in this first cycle whatever was used to priorly clean this record. And all the systems in the marketplace, it doesn't matter what chemicals, it doesn't matter whether they're vacuum systems, they're real or fake ultrasonic systems, they cannot do anything because the triboelectric table of charges states the record is negative, water and soap is negative. They repel. So now we're actually starting to suck materials out of the record. So while we're doing this, again, if you can't afford this machine, just use the brush that we supply, a 10 micron felt to remove dust so we don't create more pops. We use the carbon fiber, 2.5 million of them, to reduce static. And if you do have a record that is dirty or whatever, use a little spray of distilled water, use an efficient cloth to just clean the surface. The cleaning solutions can't get into the groove because droplets of water or droplets of cleaning solutions are larger than the groove. So all you're doing is you're removing a little surface material. Then you use just a efficient cloth and then use the same 10 micron brush just to polish the groove. That's the bare minimum. Don't use any of the elixirs that are out there. Most of them, they're either ether-based, ethylene oxide, alcohol, which is bad for the plasticizer of the record. So we'll let this spin and then come back in about 2 minutes. Okay, here we are. The machine, the timer went down to 0. We now take the record out, wobble it. Let's bring it over to the workstation. And now we see a couple of things. We see receding water. There's less water. Why? Because now the plastic is becoming pure. It's going to repel water. So we now have to do another cycle. I will then remove the excess water. I will apply the spray. And already, look at the color. We're now getting black. It was gray before. So it proves we removed something. Take the goat hair brush, let's apply the spray, and look at the schmutz now. Look at this here. Look at this colorant now coming out. This is proving what we sucked out of the record. When you no longer see this, then there's nothing left for the ultrasonic to take out. We now do this side again, and we'll take a little attention here to this area, and we'll look at the colorant. 12, 8, and 4. Pad this. Move this around, and then now we'll see materials. There we go. We see a material surfacing. This proves that we're taking materials out. When there's nothing left here, quickly, rapidly dissipated, it's the last cycle. So we're going to put this in the machine. And I'm going to cheat. We say 5 minutes. I'm going to just do 4 minutes. There we go. There we go. And we'll do another cycle. Okay, very good. Well, we just finished this cycle here in the machine. I'm going to take the record out, wobble it again, remove the excess water, bring this over to the workstation area, receding water, very much less. I then remove the excess water. I reapply the ionizing spray. Pad dry, apply the spray, and here you see that this area here, the white colorant has evaporated. This is the last cycle for this side. This is what you'll see. It evaporates when I'm at the 6 o'clock position. This is gone. So this side 1 is restored. I now come and do the next side. Remove the few remaining droplets of water. 12, 8, and 4. Pad. Apply the ionizing spray. No white. This is the last cycle in the machine. Everything's been removed. The prior cleaning agent, the outgassing of the plasticizer while the record's been in its sleeve, and the release agent pressing oil. Go back in the machine. So while this is I'm going to keep as a 5-minute cycle. We've finished restoring. I'd like to talk about buying records. Please only buy new pressings if they are from new songs, new artists, new material. Don't buy records that are digitally remastered, remakes, because those are not made with live recordings to reel tape. They're made off CDs. Dave Brubeck's reissue and whatever, the master tapes do not exist. So the sound engineers make, obviously, whatever they try to do is using a CD and then creating a new vinyl. So new artists, perfect. Buy new records. You need to restore them because the plastics of today, 16 years or younger, that make the pressing are not pure plastic. And they actually need more restoration sometimes than vintage records. So go and buy vintage records from guys like Neil. He actually doesn't abuse his records. A lot of record resellers, what they'll do is they'll put lighter fluid on the records. They'll put shoe polish just to make a record shiny and get more dollars. Neil doesn't do that. He does a great, just a surface clean. Then we go and buy those records and then we restore them. Now, I'm a 70s kid. We had their energy crisis in 71 to 72 to 81, 82. Those records sounded horrible. Not because they were improperly made. We had the oil crisis. Petroleum prices went very high, so RCA, EMI, Capital, they all asked and used records that did not sell that were in their stock. They chopped the records up with the label, with the paper and the ink, and then pressed the record. And since the plastic was impure, they added liquefiers, they added stabilizers, and other fillers. Those, when the records were pressed, had an extreme coating, especially even in Mexico. Mexican audiophiles say we do not buy Mexican pressed records of that era because they sound like shit. Records, whether they're pressed here, Mexico, Peru, Canada, Japan, we all use the stamper. We remove those oils, the release agents that come out, and now you're playing the stamper. So this 99-cent KTEL record sounds like an audiophile record. It's amazing what record restoration does. So go to Goodwill areas where the kids say my parents and my grandparents' records, they don't fit in a CD player. They get rid of the records. Even if they have surface scratches, buy them. I'm over 65. I get 50 cents a record in my Goodwill near my home, and buy records that are in Goodwills near the expensive neighborhoods, because my parents never use chemicals on their records. They just use a parastatic disc cleaner from Dr. Watts that I gave them for Christmas, which, by the way, is the basis of my development of my brush. The patent expired. Dr. Watts in '71 taught me what basically brushes do. So we're just going to finish this, and then we're going to be playing it and taking a look what we have on the spectrum analyzer. Okay, well, this took 3 4-minute cycles in the machine using the ionizing agent. We saw that there was no more white material coming out of the record when I brushed in the ionizing agent, which proves that the record's been restored. And here, now if I come over here, I take a look, I do have very little water on the edge. So this, everything else is dry. So this is proof of the record repelling water. It's now negative. Whatever water is left, just remove the water droplets off the record. We then also use the 10 micron brush, separate to the one that's at the turntable. I now polish the groove. Wow, just in doing this, this is now gliding over the record. You saw before where we shut down the turntable, there was a severe coating. That's what your needle was fighting with. So this is restored. Flip the other side. The few droplets of water that are here, I remove, and that's why vacuum systems, cleaning systems do not work, because water and droplets of water are larger than the groove. So all you're doing is surface cleaning, but you cannot get into the groove. So here we just polish this up a bit. There we go. And again, this is just surface. Mechanically polish the 6x35/45 U-shaped groove with a 10 micron brush that we provide you. Again, this is gliding over it. Wow. There we go. And now I bring it over to the turntable. Always, 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 I take my 10 micron brush, even going from my work area over here to remove dust. And look, I'm not shutting down the turntable. I'm not shutting down the turntable. Handle the static, reduce the static. And now before I either store or play the record, I'm now going to take a dry goat hair brush that we give you with the same ionizing spray. And at arm's length, I am now charging this brush. The brush isn't wet. And I induce a charge to the record, making the record positive again, and this repels dust. And it's also like a zeostat. It will reduce static, and this will repel dust so that we keep your needle cleaner. Okay? Very good. As usual, always before play, the parastatic felt, 10 microns, the carbon fiber to reduce static. And since we played this record and it had a serious coating, we provide you with a wet needle cleaner. This is safe. It's again propanediol. I'm going to just clean the tip. We don't touch the cantilever. Once, twice, because the needle was actually eating away whatever was on that record that slowed the turntable down when you saw we used the brush. So now I'm going to take the set of headphones here. We've not changed any of the settings. And now I'm going to bring the tone arm over. We're going to do the needle drop. There we go. We're going to take a look at the spectrum analyzer. And we drop the needle. There are no more clicks. Look at the height. Look. We've increased the signal about here. Let's go from minus 23 to minus 15. So 8 dB gain. 8 dB gain over floor out of the cartridge. And look. Now the first and second harmonic is there, and now we have the total spectrum. Tone, emotion, timbre is in the first and second harmonic. And this proves that we removed the pressing oil. Here's the detail that was missing. And now we're playing the stamper. This is, again, unscripted test. You only have to do this once. We always touch records, you know, with our hands. A 2-minute cycle to remove the films from fingerprint oils. That's all we have to do. And you can talk to Tim, but I'd like you, Shane, to listen to this. And I'm actually going to, after you interview Tim,
hold your phone?
there we go. I'm going to now drop this, and we're going to redo it, and you're going to tell me what you think of your record. So here we are. We're still. He knows his record. This is my record. There we go. Drop it. There we go. And you tell me what you think.
Already I can tell.
Live reaction here on camera.
Wow. Well, I know this record, and this record was very noisy, had a lot of surface noise. It's gone. It's absolutely gone. I feel like I'm in the studio listening to this being played right in front of me as a tracking engineer. That is phenomenal. My goodness.
Hey, mate.
Fantastic, mate.
Very
well
good.
done.
Very good. Appreciate you bringing that in. We've been doing this for people, especially today. People have brought their records in, noisy ones. The worst one I've ever touched in 10 years came in this morning. Was gray. We had powder coming out, and it was virtually new, and yet the record did have plastic scratches, not in the plasticizer, but in the plastic itself, and we didn't hear anything. Because we are now riding in the pocket.
This is phenomenal. Now, you know me, I'm all about authenticity, and I know how noisy that record was. Now, that record is not noisy anymore. We've watched this whole process. I have bought this record when it was new back in the early 80s. So I've done all the damage to this record. So I know exactly what's happened to it, and now it sounds like a brand new record. I cannot believe that, Charles. That is amazing.
Yep. And if you're around, come by tomorrow. Bring us a record. We'll restore it for you. And I'm probably the richest man because I'm able to touch records that I want to own myself. My wife always says, "How many records did you buy at the record fairs?" Well, you know, it's gone from 300 to like 5,000 records from 2017. Have I restored them all? Not all, but I get to get records that I've always wanted. And again, used records are the best.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, that is a very used record, and I am flabbergasted at just how good that record is now sounding. So, well done, Charles. You took the challenge. I brought you up the record. It was a real basket case, that record, and it is like a brand new record. So, look,
better than you, because you're actually, for the first time in his life, we're actually playing the stamper.
Yeah.
So you hear what the artist hears when they're in the studio.
Yeah, and that's exactly how this sounds. I mean, my engineering background, I hear these sorts of things. I've been able to hear this sort of stuff, and this is exactly what I'm hearing now. I'm hearing as if I'm sitting there listening to the band playing right in front of me, and that is absolutely amazing. I'm quite blown away just how good that is.
Yep. So, and Tim and Mike, they're with Magenta. There you go. There are exclusive Australian distributor. We now have a dealer network set up as well that Tim and Mike have been putting together. Bring a record to one of our dealers as well. Kick the tires, have a record restored, and then pick up the system. And again, especially for those of you that are new to the hobby, or you like music and you bought, for example, an Audio-Technica turntable with an $18.99 cartridge, you know, $600-700 Aussie dollar turntable with USB out and so on, and maybe you're using some full cal or Klipsch powered speakers. That's a new generation. Those $99 needles or cartridges, they have a high coefficient of friction. They're not as well cut as the traditional elliptical or conical styluses that we use. But because we've now removed all the coatings, prior coatings from someone who cleaned the record, the outgassing of the plasticizer, just like in your car that creates the film, and also the cause of some of those scuffs on the record and the pressing oil, we now actually give the new generation with reasonably priced equipment the best bang for the dollar. Because now you're touching this less the friction.
Yeah. No, it's an absolute revelation. As I said, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but you've got to try this. This is, bring your records up here, let Charles, give him the challenge. I did that after yesterday's video, as you guys saw, and he's just done it right in front of our eyes. We've been here, we've watched it. There's been no cutting just when the timing's been going on the machine, and we've come straight back and picked things up where we left off. Absolutely amazing, Charles. We'll talk to Tim in a minute on camera, and Tim can talk to you all about where you can buy one of these marvellous machines, and I'll certainly be purchasing one and doing a review on the channel of this machine with some more of my records. I've had the master here teach me how to do it, so I should be brilliant at it now, and I've got a video reference, as you do, to go back to learn and remember how it was done properly. So thank you, Charles.
Yep. And for all of you, what we normally do at these shows is a seminar. And the seminar doesn't talk about my technology. What I try to do is I try to educate everyone on how records are made and what to look out for in cleaning solutions, what to look out for, a lot of the snake oil that's being sold out there, so that when you see another American, Canadian expat come over here and present a product, you ask them two questions. What is the dB gain that your process or your chemical is going to give me out of the cartridge? And what is the increase in frequency response you're going to get out of using any process? And for now, since 2017, globally, no one answers any questions. And it's unfortunate because in many cases some of these chemicals are harmful. So if you go on our YouTube channel or Michael Fremer's YouTube channel, trackingangle.com, there are interviews or actually recordings of our seminars that I do, that J.R. Beauclair does on aligning your tone arms and cartridges, that Norm from AV Solutions on room treatments. We're the three amigos that talk technology and education at all the trade shows in America and Europe.
This man's famous, you know him, you've seen him around on the YouTube sphere, and now we get the chance to see Charles here in Australia perform his magical record restoration. So again, thank you, Charles, very much, and we'll talk to Tim in a minute, and he'll talk to you about exactly where you can buy one of these marvellous machines, and he can look after you.
Cheers, bye.
Here's a record, you hear cracks and pops.
Oh, this is going.
This is taken at the Disco Society meeting in Mexico City, and you hear crackles, and this is a Frank Sinatra record that someone brought in. Let's take a look at the frequencies, and there's a crackle in the background. Now I'm going to do, after 3 5-minute cycles, quiet. And now the first and second harmonics. And look at the signal.
Amazing. Wow, and
there you go.
And old Blue Eyes is just jumping out of the speakers at us now.
There you go.